Imagine you are riding alone across the prairie at night. There is no one around, just the wind, endless grass, and the pale glow of the moon. Then, in the distance, you see a rider. Slowly, he comes closer. The horse is real, the clothes are real, but there is one terrifying detail. He has no head. For more than 150 years, this unforgettable image has introduced readers to one of the greatest mysteries in classic literature. And there is the surprising part. Most people still believe the Headless Horseman is a ghost story filled with supernatural horrors. It's not. In reality, Mayne Reid didn't write a horror novel. He wrote a cold, ruthless detective story where almost every major character is hiding something, where love becomes a deadly danger, and where one man's jealousy sets off a chain of events that destroys countless lives. The most frightening thing in this novel isn't the Headless Horseman itself, it's the people. And if you read the book carefully, you notice something even more disturbing. From the very beginning, many of the characters make choices that seal their own fate. Some allow jealousy to consume them, others are willing to frame an innocent man for their own benefit, still others are so quick to believe rumors that they are ready to condemn someone to death without a single piece of real evidence. While everyone is chasing a ghost, the real killer is standing quietly among them, watching everything unfold. But the biggest mystery of the novel isn't the identity of the Headless Horseman. The real story begins much earlier. Why does the beautiful and wealthy Louise Poindexter fall in love not with the respectful army officer, but with the poor mustanger? Why does her cousin Cassius Calhoun begin to hate Maurice almost from the moment they met? What really happened on the night Henry Poindexter vanished without a trace? And why only a short time later do the people of Texas witness a rider galloping across the prairie without a head? Today, we are taking a deep dive into the true story of the Headless Horseman by Mayne Reid, based exclusively on the original novel with no made up details and no mixing it with the film or television adaptation. If you enjoy in-depth analysis of classic literature, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. You'll be introducing them to a great classic while helping this community grow. Welcome to Rubber Books channel. Let's begin! When most people hear the title The Headless Horseman, they immediately picture the legend of a ghostly rider galloping down a lonely road at night. But Mayne Reid's novel comes from a very different place. It's not a retelling of an old folk tale, or nor is it a gothic horror story about the supernatural. And its core, it's an adventure novel built on the author's first-hand knowledge of North America, its landscapes, people, harsh realities of life on the frontier. Thomas Mayne Reid was born in Ireland, but as a young man he traveled to the United States. He spent years exploring the American South and West, living among hunters, soldiers, settlers, traders. He witnessed live where civilization met the wilderness. Later, he served in the Mexican-American War, which took him through Texas and Mexico. Those experiences allowed him to describe the endless prairies, the unforgiving climate, the behavior of wild animals, the lives of mustangers, and the constant danger of frontier life with remarkable authenticity. Reid began writing The Headless Horseman after returning to Europe. The novel was first published in 1865 and quickly became an international bestseller. Readers were captivated by its unique blend of genres. On one hand, it's romantic love story, on the other, it's genuine detective mystery that keeps its biggest secret hidden until nearly the very end. And all of it unfolds against the backdrop of the Iraq Texas frontier, where a single mistake can cost a person their life. One of the novel's greatest strengths in the way Mayne Reid constantly plays with the reader's expectations. The title alone suggests a supernatural tale, then come the mysterious disappearance, strange events, frightening rumors, and sighting of a headless rider reported by countless witnesses. But Ray deliberately challenges his readers with a single question: are we really dealing with something supernatural, or the perfectly rational explanation behind it all? That's exactly what makes the novel work on so many different levels. For some, it's a thrilling adventure, for others, it's compelling romance, and for many, it's a carefully constructed detective story filled with clues hidden in plain sight. Most importantly, Mayne Reid plays fair. He never hides the key evidence from the reader. In fact, nearly every crucial clue appears long before the final reveal. The problem is that both the characters and the readers become so obsessed with chasing a ghost that they overlook what's right in front of them. Another reason the novel has stood the test of time is Reid's extraordinary attention to detail. Nearly everything he writes about the landscape, the wildlife, the firearms, hunting techniques, horsemanship, and daily life of the prairie is rooted in his own experience. That's why the story still feels so vivid today. You can almost feel the scorching Texas sun, see the endless sea of prairie, of grass, smell the dust kicked up by galloping horses, and sense the constant danger that hangs over anyone living far from civilization. But the novel's greatest strength is not even adventure, it's understanding of human nature. Mayne Reid shows just how easily people can be manipulated. All it takes is a rumor, a convenient suspect, and a frightened community willing to believe fear instead of facts. And it's into these Texas, beautiful, unforgiving, and filled with hidden dangers, that a young Irishman named Maurice Gerald arrives. He has no idea that a chance encounter with one family is about to change his life forever. Or that love at first sight will soon draw him into a deadly mystery, at the center of which stands the legendary Headless Horseman. Wild, Texas. Maurice Gerald's appearance and first meeting with Louise Poindexter. The real story doesn't begin with the mysterious Headless Horseman. It begins with the Poindexter family's journey across the West Texas prairie. Woodley Poindexter was once a wealthy Louisiana planter, a man of status, land, influence, but the times have changed. Financial ruin forces him to sell his estate and move his family to Texas, hoping to build a new life on the frontier. Traveling with him are his son Henry, his daughter Louise, his nephew Cassius Calhoun, several servants, and a large wagon train carrying everything they have left. They cross an enormous, unforgiving wilderness where danger can be hidden beyond every hill. From the very first chapter, Mayne Reid, I don't know, makes one thing clear: Texas is a completely different world. There are no proper roads on the endless prairie. Instead of neighbors, there are wild animals, outlaw, and hostile tribes. One wrong decision can cost you your life, and help may be dozens of miles away. During the journey, something happens that seems like nothing more than bad luck, yet it will determine the fate of nearly every major character in the novel. The wagon train loses its way. The heat becomes unbearable. Both the people and the horses begin to suffer from thirst. Their water supplies run out, and all that surrounds them in an endless sun-scorched plain. Panic slowly begins to spread through the group. If they don't the water soon, the consequences could be disastrous. That's when a young horseman appears. His name is Maurice Gerald, an Irish immigrant who makes his living in Texas by capturing and selling wild mustangs. He's not a wealthy man, he's not a famous family name, no fortune, and no higher social standing. But it's immediately clear that there's something remarkable about him. He knows the prairie better than anyone. He can read tracks, navigate land where others see nothing but endless grass, and remain calm even in the most dangerous situations. Morris quickly realizes that Poindexter family in serious trouble. He just caravan to a fresh water source. For everyone, it's a simple rescue, except Louise Poindexter. It's something far more important. Mayne Reid handles their first meeting with remarkable subtlety. There are no dramatic declarations of love, no emotional confessions. Yet the reader immediately senses the spark between them. Louise isn't impressed by Maurice's wealth. He has known. She isn't drawn to a lead title or social status. He has neither. What attracts her in is his confidence, his courage, and his quiet dignity with which he carries himself. Maurice behaves naturally and independently. Not going to impress someone. He just is. Maurice is just captivated by Louise. He sees a young woman unlike the fashionable ladies he is accustomed to meeting. She doesn't complain about the hardships of the journey. She doesn't panic under the pressure, and she faces danger with remarkable composure. A quiet attraction begins to grow between them, expressed only through brief conversations and stolen glances. But that unspoken connection will become the driving force behind nearly every tragedy that follows. Not everyone, however, is pleased by the arrival of the stranger. One man watches Maurice with glowing hostility, Cassius Calhoun. A former army officer and relative of the Poindexter family, Calhoun is a proud, arrogant, and fiercely ambitious. For some time, he has intended to marry Louise, not out of genuine love, but because it would serve his own ambitions. Despite the family's financial troubles, the Poindexter name still carries considerable prestige, and marrying Louise would strengthen his own position in society. Maurice's appearance threatens those plans from the very beginning. At first, Calhoun barely hides his contempt. To him, Maurice is nothing more than a common mustanger, a man without wealth, family connections, or social standing. Someone who has no business associating with people of their class. But it doesn't take long for him to notice something impossible to ignore. Louise keeps looking at Maurice. While everyone else is thanking the young mustanger for saving their lives, Calhoun has already begun to see his arrival. And in that moment, the novel central human conflict is born, because the greatest danger doesn't come from the untamed Texas wilderness. It begins inside the human heart when jealousy takes control. Maurice has no idea that a single act of kindness has earned him a deadly enemy. Ahead of him, he lie, love, conspiracy, false accusations, and a crime so shocking that before long, all of Texas will be convinced the killer has already been found. Love, jealousy, and hate. Why Cassius Calhoun decided to destroy Maurice. After rescuing the Poindexter family, Maurice Gerald becomes a welcome guest at the ranch. He is no longer treated as a chance guy they happened to meet on the trial, but as the man who saved their lives. Woodley Poindexter welcomes him with genuine respect. Henry quickly forms a friendship with him, and Louise finds more and more reasons to see the young mustanger. It's here that Mayne Reid begins to quietly transform an adventure novel into a psychological thriller. Nothing truly horrific has happened yet. No one has been murdered. The mysterious Headless Horseman hasn't appeared, and yet the reader can already sense that this fragile peace won't last. Maurice and Louise spend more and more time together. Sometimes they meet by chance while riding across the prairie. Sometimes they share only a brief conversation. Sometimes nothing is spoken at all, and a single glance says everything. Their loves grow slowly, without dramatic confessions or poetic speeches. That's exactly what makes it feel so real. They begin to understand each other almost without words. But there is one obstacle neither of them can ignore. Louise is the daughter of a wealthy landowner, yeah, a young woman from one of the region's most respected families. Maurice is a simple mustanger. He may be educated, honorable, courageous, and kind, but he has neither wealth nor social standing. In the 19th century, that difference carried enormous weight. A marriage between them would have been considered beneath the dignity of the Poindexter's family. Maurice understands this better than anyone. That's why he refuses to speak openly about his feelings for so long. It's not fear that holds him back, but pride and self respect. He doesn't want anymore to believe he's pursuing Louise for her family's wealth or status, but in the end, love proves stronger than caution. Little by little, their feelings become impossible to hide. Louise stops concealing how deeply she admires him. Unlike the young gentleman of her own social circle, Maurice doesn't try to impress people with money, titles, or empty words. His actions speaks for him. Cassius Calhoun, however, sees the situation very differently. From the beginning of the novel, Mayne Reid portrays him as a man consumed by pride. Calhoun believes his family named alone make him superior to warrior everyone around him. Yeah? That's why Louis' growing affection for an ordinary mustanger feels like a personal insult. At first, he tries to hide his resentment. He makes sarcastic remarks. He constantly reminds everyone of Maurice's humble background. He hints that a man of Maurice's station has no right to dream of marrying a Poindexter. But Maurice refuses to take the bait. He doesn't argue, doesn't lose his temper, and won't allow himself to be dragged into pointless confrontations. Strategically enough that only humiliates Calhoun even more. Before long, simply dislike turns into genuine hatred. And it's not driven by jealousy alone. Calhoun realizes that standing beside Maurice only exposes his own flaws. Maurice is braver, calmer, more honorable, and earns the respect of others without relying on wealth or social status. Everything Calhoun tries to achieve through arrogance comes naturally to Maurice. That's what makes him unbearable in Calhoun's eyes. Slowly but surely, Calhoun begins looking to any opportunity to get rid of his rival. He has not yet devised an elaborate scheme, but the reader can already see the dangerous pattern taking shape. He no longer sees Maurice as a human being. He sees him as an obstacle that must be removed. Meanwhile, Maurice and Henry Poindexter grow into closer friends. Henry genuinely respects the young mustanger, admires his courage, and values his knowledge of the frontier. Unlike his cousin, he has none of Calhoun's arrogance or prejudice. In fact, Henry is one of the first to realize that Maurice and Louise have fallen in love. At first, he sees nothing wrong with it, but that friendship will later prove tragically important, because before long, Henry will become the last person ever seen with Maurice before mysteriously disappearing. From that moment on, the entire state of Texas will be convinced that the young mustanger murdered this friend. And not long afterward, the people of the prairie will catch their first glimpse of a terrifying figure riding through the tall grass, a horseman with no hat. The disappearance of Henry Poindexter, a last trip to the prairie. The story begins to accelerate the moment Maurice and Louise's love is no longer a secret. They still try to hide their feelings from those around them, but it's becoming impossible. Their lingering glances, their chance encounters, and their constant desire to be together reveal more than either of them realizes. For one man, that's all the proof he needs. Cassius Calhoun finally accepts what he has feared all along. If Maurice remains in Louise's life, he will never have a chance of marrying her. And with that realization, his resentment turns into something far more dangerous. He no longer wants to embarrass his rival, he wants to eliminate him altogether. Maurice, meanwhile, is focused on something entirely different. He knows that love alone won't be enough. If he truly hopes to ask for Louise's hand in marriage, he must become a man respected not only for his courage but also for his place in society. So he continues working as a mustanger, determined to enough money to prove that he can provide the future she deserves. But fate has other plans. One day, Henry Poindexter sets out on the horseback across the prairie. Before leaving, he happens to meet Maurice. They share a perfectly friendly conversation. There are no arguments, no hostility, no threat of violence. They put on a good teams, and no one gives the meeting on a second thought. Only later will everyone realize this. It was the last time Henry was ever seen alive. After that, he simply vanishes. At first, no one is alarmed. On the Texas frontier, a traveler could be delayed for countless reasons. A horse might throw its rider, a trail could be lost, someone might spend the night at a neighboring ranch. Being gone for a day wasn't unusual, but another day passes. Then another. Henry still doesn't return. That's when the search begins. Men from nearby ranches spread out across the prairie, following tracks, searching ravines, riverbanks, and dense brush. They find nothing. It's here the Mayne Reid masterfully begins to build suspense. The reader already knows something terrible had happened, but the author refuses to reveal the truth. Instead of answers, every discovery raises new questions. During the search, disturbing clues begin to appear. The ground bears unmistakable signs of violent struggle. Bloodstains are found in the grass. Personal belongings that belong to Henry lie scattered nearby, but Henry himself is nowhere to be found. Even his body has disappeared. Experienced trackers immediately realized this wasn't an ordinary accident. A fight took place here. Someone was seriously wounded, and afterward, something happened that no one can yet explain. Around the same time, another crucial detail comes to light. Several people remember seeing Henry with Maurice shortly before the disappearance. That alone is enough for suspicion to spread like wildfire. No one has any real evidence, but public opinion has already begun turning against Maurice. He was the last person seen with Henry. They must have argued. Who else could have had a motive? Yeah, what's the motive for Maurice? Absolutely. The whispers begin among the ranch hands, spread to neighboring ranches, and before long they are treated an unquestionable fact. This is exactly what Maurice always feared, not because he knew that he was guilty, right? but because he understood how difficult it is for a man without wealth, influence, or a powerful family to defend his name. Meanwhile, Cassius Calhoun behaves with remarkable composure, too much composure. He's among the first to gently steer the conversation in the direction he wants. He never openly accused Maurice. He is far too clever for that. Instead, he acts innocent sounding questions. He makes carefully chosen remarks. He reminds people that Maurice was the last man seen with Henry. This is how the most dangerous kind of lie is born. Not the lie someone boldly announces, but the one is frightened crowd slowly invents for itself. One day, a rider makes his way back across the prairie. He notices a strange figure in the distance. A lone horse is moving slowly through the tall grass. Someone is sitting in the saddle, dressed like an ordinary rider. But as the figure draws closer, the rider sees something terrifying. It freezes his blood. The horseman has no head. From that moment, the investigation into Henry Poindexter disappearances becomes something far more terrifying. Even the most rational people begin to believe they are dealing with something supernatural. The people of Texas become convinced that a ghost is roaming the prairie. And while everyone is hunting the Headless Horseman, the real criminal remains completely safe, hidden in plain sight. The Headless Horseman, panic, rumors, and the hunt for Maurice. The appearance of the mysterious horseman marks the moment when the people of Texas seem to lose their ability to think rationally. Until then, they had still have been searching for ordinary explanations for Henry Poindexter's disappearance. Some hoped he was still alive. Others blamed outlaws or hostile tribes. But after several witnesses completely independent of one another describe the exact same horrifying sight, fear begins to overpower reason. Every account matches. Late at night, an empty stretch of prairie, a lone horse slowly emerging from the darkness. A rider sits in the saddle, but he has no head. The more the story is repeated, the more details are added. Some swear they saw the ghost vanish into the night. Others insist the horse moved without making a single sound. Still others begin recalling old frontier legends about restless spirits wandering the Texas plains. Mayne Reid brilliantly captures the way rumors are born. No one actually knows the truth, yet every new storyteller adds another piece to the legend. Within just a few days, almost no one doubts that a ghost is truly riding across the prairie. Meanwhile, the search for Henry continues. Before long, another disturbing discovery is made. His horse is found. There are traces of blood on the saddle, and nearby investigators recover several of Henry's belongings, leaving little doubt that he has fallen victim to some terrible tragedy. Yet his body is still nowhere to be found. The missing body only fuels its panic. If there is no body, people begin to wonder whether the ghost itself carried it away. The idea sounds absurd, at least until fear becomes stronger than logic. One man, however, immediately realizes how useful this groaning in history can be. Cassius Calhoun. He continues playing his role with remarkable caution. He still never openly accuses Maurice. In fact, he pretends to be the voice of reason, insisting that no one should jump to conclusion. But in almost every conversation, he quietly steers people back in the same tonight. Maurice was the last person seen with Henry. Maurice knows the prairie better than anyone. Maurice has been behaving unusually calmly since Henry disappeared. That's all it takes. Suspicious slowly hardens into certainty. No one asks where Henry body is. No one wonders why an inexperienced frontiersman like Maurice would commit such a clumsy crime, leaving so many unanswered questions behind. And no one stops to consider why the very man who saved the Poindexter family and earned the respect of everyone around him would suddenly become a mother once fear takes hold of community. Those questions simply disappear. Maurice himself has no idea how dangerous his situation has become. He continues trying to uncover the truth on his own, but after a series of events forces him out of sight for all time, his absence only strengthens the suspicions against him. To the people of Texas, it looks like the actions of a guilty man. If he's riding, he must have done it. But the reader knows the truth is far more complicated. Mayne deliberately encourages us to see the story from two different perspectives at once. On one hand, the case against the Maurice appears convincing. On the other, the evidence is filled with contradiction that simply daunt it. Why didn't the killer cover his tracks more carefully? Why didn't Henry body disappear? Who truly benefits from his death? Why is Cassius Calhoun asking unusual interest in the investigation? And why does the mysterious Headless Horseman appear only now? This is the moment when the novel fully transforms into a detective story. While the people of Texas are ready to condemn Maurice without a trial and without real evidence, a handful of people refuse to believe he is guilty. Louisa, above all, cannot accept that the man she loves could commit murder. She knows Maurice too well. His character, his humor, his honor, his integrity, and may make the accusations impossible for her to believe without proof. But love alone isn't enough to stop any angry crowd. Maurice's fate not hangs by a thread, unless the real killer is exposed soon. The young Mustanger will lose his life for a crime he never committed, while the true murderer remains close by watching as this carefully crafted plan unfolds exactly as he intended. The accusation of Maurice, the court of public opinion, and the hunt for the innocent. After Henry's disappearance and the terrifying mystery of the Headless Horseman begins to spread, the people of Texas start searching for the simplest possible explanation. They want someone to blame, and they chooses Maurice Gerald, a young Irish mustanger whom many have always viewed as an outsider. This is one of the novel's most powerful themes. Crowds don't search for the truth, they search for confirmation of what they already want to believe. Maurice finds himself condemned long before anyone even speaks of a trial. Everything about him works against him. He isn't a wealthy planter or a member of an influential family. He's a frontiersman who lives from the land, a hunter and mustanger who spends more time on the open prairie than in polite society. To the local settlers, he is an enigmatic figure. He speaks little, carries himself with quiet confidence, and has no interest in winning people's approval. Most importantly, he is poor. In a world where a person's worth is measured by family name, land, and social standing, Maurice immediately becomes suspicious, simply because he doesn't belong to the upper class. But the real reason so many people turned against him was everything to do with the Poindexter's family. Maurice has done the unthinkable. He has won the heart of Louise Poindexter. To her cousin Cassius Calhoun, that's an insult he cannot forgive. More than anyone else, Calhoun takes Maurice's presence personally. Proud, vain, and convicted of his own superiority, Cassius believes he is the only suitable match for Louisa. He has the family name, the social status, and all the advantages Maurice lacks. Yet, despite all of that, it's the poor Irish mustanger who has no fortune, no title, no influential, who wins Louis' heart. Maurice was one of the last people seen with Henry. There had been tension surrounding the two men because of Louis. Maurice was an outsider with every reason, at least in the public imagination, to remove his rival. But none of three so-called facts are actually evidence. They are assumptions driven by fear, prejudice, and emotion. Maurice becomes the victim of circumstances. People begin piecing together isolated events into a story that feels convincing simply because it's easy to believe. A poor Irishman falls in love with wealthy young women. Her family stands in his way, therefore he must have committed murder, but any real investigation should begin with a different question. Where is the evidence? That's where the novel's central conflict truly begins. That's the truth exists independently of what the majority chooses to believe. Then the mysterious Headless Horseman appears, and the fear takes complete control. People stop searching for rational explanations. A legend is born on the Texas frontier. Is the rider a ghost, the spirit of a murderer man, or is someone living previously hiding behind a terrifying disgust? Maurice is the perfect target. His name becomes linked to a crime he never committed. His honor, his future, and eventually his life are all placed in jeopardy. What makes the situation even more tragic is that Maurice hardly defends himself. He isn't the kind of man who chases rumors of bad strangers to believe in his innocence. He remains proud, calm, confident in who he is. But for the frightened community, that looks suspicious. Too many people mistakenly take silence as a guilt. The majority can be deeply unfair. A completely innocent person can be branded a criminal long before any real evidence exists. The tragedy becomes even greater because not only Morris's enemies begin to doubt him. Even people who know him well start questioning what they once believed. That's the power of public opinion. What everyone around you repeats the same story often enough. Even reasonable people begin asking themselves, what if it's true? But re- beneath this relentless hunt for a convenient suspect lies the novel's real question. If Morris isn't the killer, then who is? It's all this point that the story transforms from a tale of suspicion into a true detective mystery. Slowly, new pieces of evidence begin to emerge, details that simply don't fill the case against Morris. The trail starts leading in an entirely different direction. Testimony begins to contradict early assumptions. What once seemed obvious slowly falls apart. Alongside the characters, the reader is forced to realize that the greatest danger was never the mysterious Headless Horseman. The greatest danger was people's absolute certainty that they already knew the truth. The real killer. How the truth reveals step by step. Once public suspicion turns against Maurice Gerald, the novel settles into a classic detective story setup. Everyone is convinced the murder has already been identified, but in reality, the truth is only beginning to emerge. One of Mayne Reid's greatest strengths as a writer is that he challenges readers to look beyond the events themselves and recognize how easily people abandon evidence in favor of prejudice. While every eye is fixed on Maurice, the real culprit remains hidden in plain sight. That's exactly what makes the mystery so difficult to solve. People search for a criminal where it's most convenient to find one, while overlooking the person who has the strongest reason to conceal the truth. As the investigation unfolds, attention gradually shifts toward other characters, and no one man becomes increasingly important. Cassius Calhoun. At first, Cassius appears to be nothing more than an arrogant gentleman, bitter because Louise has chosen Maurice over him, but little by little it becomes clear that his feelings have evolved into something far more dangerous. He isn't capable of accepting rejection. For him, love is no longer about affection, it's about possession and wounded pride. He spent his entire life getting what he wants, and he simply cannot accept that a man beneath his social standing has won the heart of the women he believes should belong to him. That blow to his pride becomes the driving force behind everything that follows. Outwardly, Cassius remains composed and respectable. Inwardly, however, he is consumed by jealousy, resentment, and an overwhelming desire to destroy his rival. In Mayne Reid doesn't reveal the truth all at once. Instead, he carefully introduces details that seems insignificant. Every new discovery, the characters and the readers to reconsider what they thought they knew. The mystery of the Headless Horseman becomes the centerpiece of the investigation. Who is hiding behind this terrifying figure? Why does the horseman suddenly appear? Why does his presence inspire such fear throughout the Texas frontier? The answer has nothing to do with ghosts or the supernatural. Gradually, it becomes clear that the tragedy wasn't caused by a curse or some supernatural force. It was born from very human emotions: jealousy, pride, and the obsessive desire to possess another person. As more evidence comes to light, the false narrative begins to collapse. What once seemed obvious turns out to be only the surface of much deeper truth. Maurice, the man everyone believed to be guilty, is slowly proven innocent, and the man who appeared honorable and respectable reveals himself to be capable of a terrible crime. One of the novel's most important lessons is that truth is uncovered not because the majority finally charges its mind, but because someone is willing to examine the evidence carefully instead of following public opinion. Crowds can condemn innocent people. Rumors can destroy lives and reputations. But real truth demands patience, careful observation, and the courage to question what everyone else believes. Throughout his ordeal, Maurice revealed the strength of his character. He doesn't seek revenge against those who accused him. He doesn't humiliate the people who believe the lies. His greatest strengths are his dignity, self-control, and unwavering integrity. That's what makes him the novel true hero. Standing beside Maurice, Cassius' weakness has become impossible to ignore, while Maurice remains calm even when the entire world seems determined to condemn him. Cassius becomes a prisoner of his own emotions. Unable to accept defeat, he slowly destroys himself. By the final stages of the investigation, it becomes clear that the mystery of the Headless Horseman was never simply a clever plot device designed to entertain readers. It symbolizes something much deeper, the way fear can blind people to the truth. Everyone is terrified by the image of a mysterious rider, yet no one notices the real evil standing right beside them. Through this story, Mayne Reid reminds us the most dangerous enemy is not a ghost or an ancient legend. It's the human heart when the jealousy, hatred, and pride overpower reason. The man hunted as a martyr turns out to be the victim. The man trusted and respected by society is exposed as the true criminal. And the headless horseman ceases to be a supernatural nightmare, becoming instead a powerful symbol of how a fire person can fall after surrounded to envy and obsession. In the end, the novel leaves readers with one unforgettable question. What is truly more terrifying? A monster from an old legend, or an ordinary person willing to commit evil for the sake of wounded pride? Mayne Reid's answer is unmistakable. Reid, evil is not born from darkness of the supernatural. It is born with this human heart. The final. Who has the Headless Horseman? How did the story end? And the novel's main message. After all the suspicious accusations and false leads, the mystery finally begins to unravel. What throughout the entire novel appeared to be something almost supernatural turns out to be part of a carefully hidden human crime. The Headless Horseman is not a ghost. He is not a dead man returning from the grave. Behind this terrifying image stands a living person, Cassius Calhoun. He is the true cause of the tragedy. But what makes Mayne Reid's portrayal of Cassius so interesting is that he is not simply a one-dimensional villain. His downfall does not begin at the moment he commits his crime. It begins much earlier with his own character. From the very beginning, Cassius is presented as a man who believes he is naturally superior to others. His wealth, high family background, and social position make him feel as though the world owes him everything he wants. He cannot accept rejection. He cannot accept that Louis choosing someone else. And little by little, love transforms into a destructive obsession. To Cassius, Maurice Gerald is not merely a romantic rival. He becomes a symbol of his own humiliation. The man he considers beneath him has defeated him in one area where money and social status mean nothing: the ability to inspire genuine love and respect. That realization is what ultimately destroys Cassius. After Henry Poindexter's death, Cassius carefully directs public suspicion toward Maurice. He knows exactly what the story people want to believe. An outsider, a poor hunter, a rival in love, therefore he must be the mother. But the truth slowly begins to emerge. The great irony of the novel is that Cassius creates the very legend that eventually leads to his downfall. The image of the Headless Horseman was supposed to frighten people and keep the crime hidden. Instead, the mystery surrounding that figure draws attention, forces people to search for answers. The fear that was meant to protect the criminal ultimately becomes the path to discovering the truth. When the mystery is finally solved, the failure of public judgment becomes impossible to ignore. Maurice was accused because he was the easiest person to blame. He was an outsider. He was poorer than the people around him. He was the different. Yet he was the one who possessed honor. And the man who had wealth, status, and respected name turned out to be the person responsible for destruction. Once the truth is revealed, justice is restored. Maurice Gerald regains his reputation and his honor. Louise Poindexter no longer has to choose between her life and the dimension of society. Their relationship can finally exist not as a secret connection that others try to destroy, but as the bond between two people whose feelings has survived every challenge. Maurice Gerald does not have Cassius Calhoun's fortune or social standing, but he possesses everything Cassius lacks: honesty, honesty, courage, loyalty, and inner dignity. Society can create accusations incredibly quickly. People are often willing to believe the simplest explanation, especially when it confirms their existing prejudices. But the truth is not always found where the majority is looking. Mayne Reid shows that sometimes one person can stand against everyone else and still be right. That is why the Headless Horseman remains memorable more than a century later. It's not just an adventure story about chases, mysteries, and the danger of the Wild West. It's the story about love and jealousy, about pride and downfall, about how human weaknesses can lead to tragedy. And above all, it's a story about truth defeating deception. The most powerful image in the novel is not the headless horseman himself. It's not the mysterious figure riding across the horizon. The true horror is that people are willing to destroy an innocent person when they believe they already know the truth. Mayne Reid leaves readers with a simple but powerful message. You should not always fear the unknown. Sometimes the greatest danger is the evil hiding behind the familiar face. If you enjoyed this analysis, make sure to like this video, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching and see you soon.